We are continuing our discussion on Detroit Red Wings trade rumors. Last time, we spoke about Red Wings goalie prospect Sebastian Cossa, and we had a conversation about Frank Seravalli's update that says that Sebastian Cossa, apparently, is going to get moved. There's no reservations about that. Frank Seravalli went out there and spoke about it, pretty much said that it's going to happen because the Red Wings have themselves a new, shiny goalie prospect toy. Cossa is a guy that I think a lot of us understand. He hasn't really been placed in the best position post-2021 draft. The reason I say that is because he was the top goalie taken out of the selection of guys, despite the fact that Cossa, once upon a time, maybe wasn't really seen as the top netminder of this crop of players. Jesper Wallstedt went a few picks after Sebastian Cossa, and now he was the starter for a second-round team in the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Not to mention the fact that he played a full NHL season with a .916 save percentage and 4 shutouts, putting him as one of the best young goalies in the league. Cossa lost his starting job to Michael Postava in the AHL's Calder Cup playoffs. So, with all that said, Frank Seravalli spoke out about Cossa, saying this guy's going to be on the move. We've had a lot of people tossing their opinions out there. Could Cossa go back over to Edmonton, the same city that he played his WHL hockey in? Now, we're diving into this post, posted by Stark on $StoreIserplan.substack.com. This user went out there and wrote about why they are on the trade Sebastian Cossa train. It's a post that was subsequently posted onto the R Detroit Red Wings subreddit, which sparked up a lot of controversy and response. So let's dive into this philosophical idea, why one would be interested in trading Sebastian Cossa away, and then we'll get into the arguments itself. Link is going to be in the description of this article. Before we dive into it, though, let's dive into the numbers. Sebastian Cossa had a .915 save percentage and a .233 goals against in 39 games played with the Grand Rapids Griffins this year. He made his NHL debut with the Red Wings in the 24-25 season, and while he did spend some time with the organization this year, he didn't get any game action. He didn't get any game action in the AHL playoffs as well, as we had just noted, because Michael Postava is now the number one dude, it seems. The fact that Postava is also decently young, and the fact that he put up a .912 save percentage in the playoffs, makes for a pretty interesting story for a guy that was signed out of Europe and brought over to North America. But anyways, let's dive into this post made by Stark. Tony Stark, it seems, or maybe their name is Howard, who really knows? It seems like the hottest topic surrounding the Wings in the early weeks of the 2026 offseason centers around one player, Sebastian Cossa. Following a disappointingly early playoff exit by the Griffins in which he lost his starter role to North American newcomer Michael Postava, questions surround the Red Wings' goaltending future. Has Postava passed Cossa on the depth chart? Is Cossa still the goalie of the future for Detroit? Who will back up John Gibson next season, and where does Trey Augustine factor into all of this? In my opinion, the right move for the Red Wings is to trade Cossa this offseason. Here is why. The article talks about how Cossa did have a decent amount of success in the Grand Rapids Griffins organization. However, his development trajectory has been fraught with red flags, starting with the earliest. Canada's struggle to develop elite goaltending talent in most of the post-lockout era. No first-round goalie drafted out of the Canadian junior leagues has become an NHL starter since Jonathan Bernier, who was selected at 11th overall in 2006 by the LA Kings. Few Canadian goalies have even rated in this range, and all failed to even turn into full-time NHL goalies. Chet Pickard, Thomas McCollum, Malcolm Subban, Mark Vizentine. If you are one to trust in historical trends, it would be unwise to bet big on a Canadian junior goalie in the first round. They have not panned out in 20 years for a reason. Now, I'm not necessarily going to agree or disagree with that, but I will say the comparison definitely makes it easier to buy into it. Jesper Wallstedt is a guy that a lot of people pegged as the top goalie prospect in the 2021 draft for years. up until Sebastian Cossa, with his big frame and crazy out-of-nowhere Edmonton Oil Kings production, came to the forefront. He had a .941 save percentage in his draft year, and he lost 2 games. He had more shutouts than he had losses. There's a reason Cossa went in the first round, and a lot of it had to do because Steve Yzerman and the Red Wings staff bought into the hype of a guy having an out-of-nowhere, unexpectedly generational-seeming season. And I'm saying that because you don't ever see goalies get .940 save percentages in the CHL. It just doesn't happen, especially draft-eligible guys. But with that said, Wallstead got passed, and it's why he is now a Minnesota Wild. Cossa's 21-22 WHL performance was a far cry from the 17-1-1 record that he had the year prior. To add to this, the next largest red flag on Cossa's development journey was the ECHL. Only one NHL starter currently in the NHL has ever spent a full season of development in the E. Logan Thompson. No others have ever done more than a short stint. Historically speaking, it is a bad sign for any prospect's future if they had to spend more than 20 games in the ECHL. Now, at 23, with just one NHL game to his name, the Path's red flags have not dissipated. Every single goaltender, successfully, that was drafted in the first round since '06 has played at least a good handful of NHL games by this point, and not because the teams they were on were out of options, but because they were good enough to have earned those starts. Now, the rest of the article dives into specific plays of Sebastian Cossa, and it's a really good deep dive. I think there's so much content in here, it's worth taking the time to read it, so the link is in the description. But we're going to respond to some of the comments made on the R Red Wings subreddit as well, because a lot of the comments over here, they disagree. Moby Dick says he disagrees with the conclusion that it's a sunk cost, and that the Red Wings should take what they can get, even if it's just a second-round pick. I actually think the opposite. Let him play 30 games, and if he sucks, he sucks. Downside is we miss out on a second-round pick and turn to Postava. The upside is he is a legit NHLer. Either way, we gotta see what we have, and it would be dumb to take a lowball. Top Reply says pretty much what I think, but also I don't think there is a team out there giving up a second for Cossa right now. Who are they? Maybe Edmonton. But I think if you are looking at the Sebastian Cossa trade situation and thinking to yourself, man, the Red Wings need to get out of this situation, they need to maximize the value, they need to get this guy off the team because he's not going to make it, let's settle for a second-round pick, obviously you are admitting fault there. You are admitting that you took a guy in the 15th overall spot that wasn't worth 15th overall and that had a whole bunch of hiccups and road bumps along the way to doing what he is doing now. But at the same time, there is a chance that he can be good. There is a chance that he can break that mold of not having ECHL guys inevitably become NHL players, or he can just be the second in line after Logan Thompson. It's possible. Another reply says, if Cossa has so many obvious red flags that are apparently unfixable, how is it that other teams would not see the same issues, making his trade value worthless? I think the tone of it wasn't that the flaws are unfixable, but that the flaws are a lot worse than the stats make them out to be, and that Detroit isn't in a great place for him to figure out how to fix those flaws at the NHL level when he can't even fix them at the AHL level. Fair idea. And finally, another comment says, Too Long didn't read, Cossa sucks, but we should expect a first-rounder in return. So, yeah. We'll see if that actually manifests, right? With all that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. How do you feel about the Sebastian Cossa trade discourse, and do you think it's the right move to send this guy away? How do you feel about Cossa in a situation? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.